Welcome back to your live continuing coverage of NAB 2017 here live in Las Vegas, Nevada at the Las Vegas Convention Center. This is Be Terrific, your live continuing coverage, and we are in the LiveU booth. LiveU makes video transmission equipment that is unbelievable. It's wireless video transmission equipment, so you can broadcast live or transmit video live from anywhere over cellular. Thanks to LiveU, you can also do it over regular internet, so it would be IP as well. So we're going to do like a little bit of a panel discussion here. It's going to be really interesting, and it's part of what LiveU has helped create, right? It's at-home production. What that means is that you go out in the field with 3 or 4 or 5 camera people, and they shoot the content and stream it live to your production facility. At the back end of that production facility, you record all the content like you were standing there at the production, and then you're able to cut it, edit it, do whatever you want. You don't have to send editors. So you think of it, I think of it most easily at like spring training, right? You don't have to send all your editors and everybody out to the field. And you can even keep some of your producers at home because they can produce or direct from your facility by talking in people's ears with IFBs and all sorts of stuff. And so it's really a great way to save money, and it's really the future. And so we've got Brandon here from the University of Oklahoma, who's going to be talking about how they use at-home production. We've got Scott, who's from L2 Productions, and you guys you've done over 600 live streams, and you use at-home production all the time. You work with Barry Switzer on his show as well. And then, of course, we've got Mike Sullivan, who is here from LiveU, and he's here to talk about how Nesson has incorporated this into their workflow. And I basically stole his thunder, so he can go now. Because I talked about the spring training model, and Nesson's using it for spring training and all sorts of other things. Mike, we'd like you to stay at least for a little while. Is that okay?
No problem.
Gentlemen,
it's
welcome.
Savello, by the way.
I'm sorry.
No problem.
I didn't mean to get that wrong.
It's fine.
Savello.
Savello. Mike Savello, yeah.
Mike Savello.
Yeah.
All right, I got it right now. Thank you. I'm sorry.
It's fine. It's fine.
I'm not good with names. I think this is Scott, but it's really Brandon. All right. So you guys use at-home production. Explain to me how it works for you guys, and I think it's different for everybody.
Well, we do different events throughout the year, but we just recently did a golf broadcast with where we used 8 LiveU backpacks, put those out with camera folks, and they traveled with teams around the holes and helped us create a live golf broadcast. We've also used it for track and field and some other events like that.
So if you think about it, basically you had your, you did this all live, I imagine, right?
Yep.
So you had your technical director sitting in Oklahoma, right? And all the feeds are coming in as if they were, as if he was at the golf course. And they're coming in wirelessly, which is even better because you don't have to wire the golf course, especially in this scenario.
Correct, yeah.
And so this technical director is sitting there with a director next to them, I imagine, in some kind of, let's call it a tin can, because I think of the movie Pushing Tin when I think of this kind of scenario, even though they were controlling planes and we're controlling cameras. And so if you have 8 feeds, you have 8 feeds coming in, and it's now camera feed 3 or camera feed 8, and you just switch between them like you would normally switch between them.
Yeah, we call it kind of a centralized control room, and our technical director and our director is talking to our camera folks via their cell phones, kind of calling into a conference line, and he's calling it out and telling them which shots to get, and then we're adding graphics and we're adding any of the other things there in our Norman, Oklahoma centralized control room, and then we're pushing it to regional sports network.
Now, do you have multiple cameras on each hole, or is this, there are 8 crews, there's 8 hole, there's 18 holes, but they kind of shift throughout the
year? We chose to put 4 with our OU team, 4 cameras with OU team, and then single cameras with the other teams to try and keep up with how they're doing.
Is the biggest challenge to get sync on those cameras so that when somebody tees off and somebody else is capturing that ball in flight, you're
that was probably that was the one thing that amazed me, was how that all the cameras were frame accurate. So we took them all into our EVS and rolled them frame by frame, and I wasn't expecting it to be frame accurate, but they were, and so that was a huge advantage for us.
Were they all on about a 1-second delay?
I think we had our delay set at around 5 seconds.
5 seconds. So they're all on a 5-second delay.
Yep.
And then they're all matched up pretty well on that exact 5-second delay. That's pretty impressive. Now, I could teach you something that probably would help. Instead of using, still using cell phones, but instead of using them like that, we use something called Unity. And Unity is an IFB system and conference party line. I see Scott getting all excited. He's like, that's what we use. That's awesome. Unity's phenomenal. We love Unity. UnityIntercom.com. It can be used for so many different things. I mean, first of all, it can be used as a walkie-talkie, and you can rent it for like events, or you could be a police force and want to use it as a walkie-talkie. It's over cellular or IP, so you can use it over Wi-Fi as well. And you can use it with computers and iPads and all sorts of stuff. And then,
see, that's exactly why I come to this show.
Well, they're here, by the way.
Learn new things every time.
It's phenomenal. They are here. And then we use this as an IFB system. So right now I've got several different channels that I can talk on. So camera 1 could be production, 2 could be catering. I could want to tell them that I got to, make sure my lunch is ready. 3 could be, producers. 4 could be talent. And I can separate all those people. But here's where it gets better is over here, and I keep hitting the proximity sensor of my phone. Sorry about that. I can go in and see who's on, and I can talk to them individually. So if I want to key out just talent and tell them something, I can.
Huh.
And so I've been using this. Have you done this yet? The AirPods with them, and they're phenomenal. They work amazing with the AirPods.
Huh.
So I've been using the AirPods with them, but you can use Bluetooth, or you can use any other. You can even use the old things that Apple gave you with the cord. I don't even earpods with a little microphone. You could use that too. So DJ on our team uses that, and then I use the AirPods because I'm cooler. But it really works, and it's phenomenal. So that'll help. So you're not like, what'd you say? Hold on.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, it's really great. So that's very interesting. I think that you guys have a good use for it and a good use case. I wonder, do you feel like you could have switched a show like this live if we sent all these feeds back to New York? I always have wanted to, but it's always my concern.
For sure. We've been LiveU users for, 4 or 5 years, and we've always kind of had one belt pack and one receiver. And then when we explored doing this golf event, we figured, hey, we're going to need more. So no, I think we will be investing in a quad receiver and getting a few more belt packs and doing our pregame shows and things like that from an away location. So
imagine how amazing that would be, and maybe you guys are doing this, but to do this, just have the cameras here and maybe the remote control, even though you could do these cameras over the internet too, and have the technical director back in New York or wherever would be unbelievable, and it would save some space. We could have a green room for you gentlemen. All right, so Scott, you guys are using at-home production all the time. Where do you see it shining for you guys and saving the most amount of money? You do stuff, 600 live productions. You're doing stuff almost every day all across the country, I imagine.
Yeah, so we're doing turnkey live production, mainly for sports. So historically, that's been the traditional model with either a truck or a trailer or a fly pack system out in the venue with cameras, director, replay operator, graphics, audio, the traditional model. So, and we've been using LiveU for years to do transmissions. So long history with a partnership with LiveU, but more recently we started getting into this remote model, the at-home as you're calling it. So for us, it allows events like golf, cross country, track and field, where they're difficult to get cable runs to. They're extremely difficult productions to manage from a cable infrastructure mainly. So being able to get cameras out into remote locations on golf courses and cross-country tracks and a rowing course, those are sort of impossible any other way. You can't run cable across water. So those types of things, but it also allows us to scale. So to your point, we do a lot of events. So in the historic model, I'm limited by how many trucks or trailers can I get out to an event to do a live production. Now I've got all the equipment back at the studio, and all I need is cameras and LiveU packs out at the venue. So I can theoretically do 3 or 4 events in one day from one studio, because all you need out in the field are cameras and backpacks.
Right.
So to your point earlier, it saves on travel. It saves on traveling people out on site, flights, meals, hotels, etc. Plus it allows us to do more than one event in a day with the same crew.
Wow. That's pretty cool. Because they just pack up the camera and the LiveU pack and leave. They're not packing up this takes a couple days to set up. They're not packing all this up and setting it back up at the next event. They're literally camera, lights, and audio.
That's exactly right. And like we do a lot of college sports.
Yeah.
So we have deals with conferences like the American Athletic Conference, where the idea would be that you would have cameras and backpacks on campus, and those move around from event to event, from venue to venue. We're ingesting all of that back at the studio and doing everything else. The director, the replay operator, the graphics, everything else is being done back at the studio.
So I can get the idea that we could do a show like this, and we probably could get it pretty close to being in sync and everything. But if there was an issue, the audience would go, okay, well, it's fine. It's a show like this, like a pregame show. But I think if we do sports like this, it's a lot trickier, right? Especially, I could imagine a football game. Again, he says he got it, but the quarterback throws the ball or hands to the running back. We cut to this camera. It has to be frame accurate. Is that a challenge, and have you been doing that?
That's the holy grail to the whole thing. You can't
Right.
switch live sports if the cameras are not in sync.
Right.
So that was the biggest concern we had going into this, and the thing we were the most skeptical about. But I tell you, it works. We recently did a rugby tournament where we had 4 cameras on the
This
on
was in the
field.
U.S.?
This was in Austin, Texas. There's now a professional rugby league
Wow.
in the U.S. You'll hear about it more next year. And we're doing the production for the league. But just as an example, similar to football, you have to have the cameras in sync, and they were perfect. They came into the studio, all 4 cameras perfectly in sync. About a 1-second delay. We actually always set ours on the lowest possible delay because we want it to be as real time as possible. And they came in perfectly in sync. We ingest them into the switcher. We add the graphics. We add the score bug. We do
And
the
the
audio, the replay, and then it goes out just like it would if you were in a trailer on site. So the viewer doesn't notice any difference.
How much testing do you put into this before you deploy it? And let's say you show up at that field, like you said, you could do 3 in a day. You show up at that field. I mean, how much testing do you do?
Well, we've tested this pretty thoroughly, but one of the nice things about LiveU is that it doesn't rely on IP. You can use cellular if necessary. So it's one of the things I love about LiveU is that I don't have to rely on the venue for connectivity.
Right.
So I can go into any venue, anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world, really, and as long as there's decent cell coverage on a couple of carriers, I don't have to worry. If the venue doesn't have proper connectivity or if it goes out, it doesn't matter. I've got cellular connectivity. And LiveU, of course, has done a great job of researching that worldwide to let you know, hey, you're going into this particular market in this venue. They've got great Verizon, Sprint, and AT&T. They've got that all mapped out, so you know by region, what kind of success you should have with the cell network.
Mike, it must sell itself then.
Well, it certainly is appropriate for the discussion we're having. I think, there's been a lot of talk about at-home production for really the last year. I think the last 12 to 18 months has been when it's sort of been peaking.
And because Mike is with LiveU, he actually does this at home, not at the...
Yeah, I'm not here right now. I'm at home, but... No, but I think a lot of the talk around at-home production has to do with a really high-speed backhaul, like a fiber or a satellite-based backhaul,
Sure.
where you still have a satellite truck on premises or you still have access to a fiber connection, and that's what you see mostly in the press. But I think there's a huge market opportunity for being able to backhaul when you don't have those technologies available. You don't have the cost, the cost infrastructure to support that type of production. So. From our perspective, our technology is sort of the perfect gateway to at-home production for, the sort of the mass market. Brandon's not going to use our stuff necessarily for an actual, football game because all those things get broadcast on live television through satellite trucks. But certainly for some of his other sports, or a perfect example was the golf event, where not only don't you have to have your on-site production, but you don't have to run miles of SDI cable like you usually would on a golf course, right?
So like stadiums, like football stadiums, for instance, are pretty much wired. So a camera guy walks up to the sideline, and this is his position, and he puts a cable in, and if he has to run it 100 feet, he runs it 100 feet. It's not that big a deal. That's how football, baseball, hockey arenas, basketball arenas are designed. However, you go to a golf course, they don't have a tap out of the tree. You have to, the tree on 18th and the sand trap on 17. I mean, this is really the only way to do it. However, ESPN for years has been running cables. So that brings us to NESN, New England Sports Network.
Correct.
They are my nemesis because I'm a Rangers fan. But I do like Nesson. Those are great guys. But, I'm a New York Rangers fan, so we have MSG. But Nesson does really great programming. And they are, I've always noticed, while MSG has the Rangers, they're not on the cutting edge of technology. Nesson has always been on the cutting edge of technology, and that's why they're my nemesis. No, I'm just. I love Nesson. So
the Rangers have actually been a customer of ours too for quite some time.
Have they?
Yeah, they have. But Nesson had an idea a couple of years ago that they could save a lot of money on spring training, and you have to think about the fact that spring training games for baseball is a pretty low revenue opportunity, right? So spring training is a necessity, and the fans want to see spring training on television, but the problem is that it doesn't draw a huge crowd to watch it because it's still just spring training. So the revenue models are very different for a spring training game than they are for a regular season game. And so the problem is that the production has been just as expensive to do production for a spring training game as for a regular game, during the season. So Nesson came up with the idea of using our technology. They've been a longtime customer of ours as well, and they thought, well, we have this great technology which is all mobile-based, cellular-based. Why not use this for backhauling the camera feeds from the park during the spring training games and do the production that way, as opposed to rolling the truck and the satellite truck and production truck satellite truck combination and doing your typical production, which is with an NEP truck, which is extremely expensive. So we did half of the spring training games for them last year. And it went really well, and we kind of fine-tuned the model and everything, and we made some development changes in our product, and really we worked very closely with them. We partnered with them essentially to bring this to the next level. And this year we did the same thing. We did half of all the Red Sox spring training games from Florida, where the production was actually done in Nesson's studio in Watertown, Mass, and they saved an enormous amount of money on the production of those 16 games.
The cameras at the ballpark were feeding the video back to Massachusetts.
Correct. That's
live.
Correct. Yeah, over cellular.
This is what we just talked about,
solely over
right?
cellular.
And this is the scenario we would have said, we would have put, this all into a, tap in the stadium. But we forgot about those taps. So it didn't go back to a switcher that had all the cameras synced and then sent out a feed in the ballpark. They literally eliminated the switcher operator there, and they just went from each camera, there was a pack on it.
That's correct.
And it went over cellular?
It went over cellular.
Wow.
All over cellular, and we were averaging 7.2 megabits per pack per camera.
Yeah.
And every one of them was backhauling to Watertown, Mass. And
did they record locally too to keep master records at high quality? Because 7.2 is great, and I'm sure it's great for broadcast. But I think that especially with baseball, they archive this stuff like crazy.
Yeah, I think they were recording in camera as well.
Yeah.
But for the most part, they just took the live feed. It's a full 1080p stream.
Right.
So it's full HD and it's full. It's broadcast quality HD.
And they had no problem from the guys in the windup. Now we're on the close-up center field shot of the pitcher on the windup, and we cut to the shot where we can see the plate. Now we cut to the batter. All that and the ball, it looks seamless.
It's seamless. It's all being switched in-house, and as Brandon pointed out, it's all frame accurate. So it's, you set the delay on each pack to the same number, and in this case they were running at a 1.2 second delay, I think, on all the packs, and the packs are frame accurate.
That is unbelievable. So wait, what's the setup like? So you have the LiveU pack, let's say they used an LU600, then on each camera, and then on the other side, they have the LU server.
Right,
I don't remember the model.
LU2000. Yes.
LU2000 server.
Yep.
And they have a different server for each camera, or they have a multi?
So one server is able to take 4 feeds in.
Right.
So they had 2 servers, 2 quad servers, and they were taking 6 feeds into 2 quad servers. And each of those servers has 4 SDI output ports coming from them.
It just goes right into the switcher.
Comes right in, comes right out, goes right into their switcher.
Or it probably went to the replay system first and then went to the switcher.
Right.
But there's no black burst generator, no sync, no gen lock,
You don't need any of that. Nope.
Can you just drop the microphone and leave now? That's unbelievable.
It's a game changer. It really is.
Listen, I've been on the forefront of technology since I've been in the business. I've always wanted to push the limits. And, we come and we do this, and that's all wonderful. It's phenomenal. It's really exciting. And I feel like this is pushing the limits. And people look at us and they're like, you're crazy. But also, I don't have the responsibility of Nesson, right? If we mess this up, a few viewers get upset, and I go, okay, I don't have Major League Baseball and the Red Sox upset with me if this transmission doesn't work perfectly. And so the pressure for that, and the thing is that most guys in those positions usually think in a very old school manner, and to get them to go, they'll go, oh, we'll just roll the satellite truck. It's not my dollar. Well, we've already contracted for the satellite truck, so that's unbelievable. How do you get the people who have to make the decisions above you to buy into this?
I don't think we would have done the golf event had we not had that technology. So it's allowing us to do events that maybe normally wouldn't have any television coverage. And for our golf event, we put our talent back in the studio so that they could watch the cut camera feed of
Sure.
the live broadcast feed.
So they didn't even go to the course.
But I'm really, really excited about next year. LiveU is coming out with a return feed back to the golf course. So we could have put the talent then, back at the football stadium, back at the golf course, and they could have see the return feed coming back to them, which is really exciting.
In all fairness, you could have added a second LU600 or another LU600 and sent it back now.
For sure.
But you're so is that a secret? Did we just unveil a secret that there'll be a return feed?
No, we actually we launched it already, so it's already been announced, and we're actually showing it in the booth here at NAB. So we have the ability to send a video stream back. It's only on a half-second delay from the studio, which is pretty amazing. So that you can really kind of time things. Whether it's a weather person wanting to comment on a graphic that's being shown in studio, or whether it's a sports person needing to comment on a replay that's happening on air.
So it's a half-second delay. In his case, it'd be a second and 7/10 of a second, I guess, because he was at 1.2. I guess they were at 1.2 as well.
For the round trip,
right, for the round trip.
But a lot of times the content coming back from the studio is different content, or it's content that's already been put into an instant replay mode, a slow-mo mode, or something like that you need to comment on. And so having that, the ability to see it both on the screen, on the unit, and then also we have a mini HDMI connector on the unit that you'll be able to cable out to a separate HDMI monitor, so you can actually see the return feed on an HDMI monitor in the field as well.
Phenomenal stuff. That's great. How about for you? I mean, do you think that? I mean, I can't even. My mind is so blown right now. I can't even think about the future. But that's what I'm trying to ask, Scott. Is that where do you see this going in the future? How does it get even better?
Well, so I think there's a couple things. To Brendan's point, this is allowing our customers to broadcast events that they would not have otherwise done because it's cost prohibitive. For say a mid-size college or a high school to do a golf event, it's just cost prohibitive.
Right.
So that's one example. So that's one advantage for us, is it allows us to go out and get jobs to do events that would have otherwise not been possible. It also allows for scale, like I talked about earlier. Right, that's where it gets exciting for me, and I can go out now and do a deal with a fledgling professional rugby league that doesn't have an ESPN-style budget to roll trucks and trailers out to every live event. I can produce a high-volume events for that league now using this workflow and this technology.
So right now we're talking sports, right? That's what we're mostly talking about, but could you ever see this being used for a television show production? Because the editors could be... So let me give you an example. We have a show called Broadway Bartender. And I came up with the idea that Broadway Bartender is a really great concept. We go into a bar, and we have this guy who's the host, who's he's not only an actor on Broadway and off Broadway with his own show on the history of drinking, but he also is an expert in spirits, right? In wine, alcohol, all that stuff. And so he hosts the show at a bar, and we have all these actors from Broadway coming on to sample a drink and then talk about whatever. Multi-camera show. So we could have 8 cameras set up and shoot 8 cameras and come back and capture that into the system and edit it and color correct it and do all that stuff. And then I said, wait a second, we do this here. Why don't we do this at Broadway Bartender so that it's basically done? Maybe we color correct it, maybe the guy switched to your camera when he should have switched to your camera. It's okay. We'll record it in camera still, and we can make those adjustments to perfect it. But the reality is, if 80% of the work is done on location, in this case, well, then our speed to delivery is faster, and our efficiency is better, and our cost of production is lower. And it's working. So my question is, could I then take that model and say, well, I don't need the technical director to be there. and I could actually do what you guys are doing and send this back to my facility and have them cut it basically as it's happening, but from my facility. And so do you see it not only for Broadway Bartender, but do you see that as something that television productions will pick up in the future? I think it's a very novel way of doing television production.
I think certainly for any place where you need to roll your production team on site, whether it's a truck or it's a whole truckload of equipment, I think it's an opportunity for this model, honestly. So red carpet events, all sorts of event-based rentals that we do for customers, expanding that into a remote production opportunity or an at-home production opportunity, so you can put together a true multi-camera type of production, which has a much more professional look and feel to it, but at a fraction of the cost of what it would typically be.
Well, and that's the thing. We look at Facebook Live is huge right now. Periscope is huge, but everything is with the phone and a single shot, and it drives me nuts. I want to see better productions, especially when corporations are doing it. It's one thing if, Mary over there is walking around with her phone and Facebooking everybody. That's fine, but when a corporation like McDonald's has their CEO walking around some event going, hey, I'm on Facebook Live, it looks like McDonald's maybe should be doing a better job. So I think that that's a great way to do that without incurring this constant ridiculous cost of flights and hotel rooms and all sorts of stuff. And to your point, red carpets, now we can have a multi-camera on the red carpet pretty easily. How about tossbacks between people? Pretty easily. We can be a lot more creative with our productions. But also, like we just said, we can do a television production. And I just thought of another concept for this, and it's probably already been done, but we do a lot of television commercials too. And we rented a mountain in Utah and had an Olympic skier and all this stuff. It was phenomenal. We had 8 hours to shoot this national television Olympic commercial, right? You spend all this time and money prepping, you rent the mountain, all that. We didn't really know how the cards and the cameras were going to react to. It was minus 17 degrees when we shot this. And we were backing everything up on site, but what would be nice is to be able to send a feed. Maybe it's not the highest resolution ever, right? Maybe we would really love it to be better, but if we knew that it was home and it was recorded at home at the facility, and I don't know, the cards get run over by a truck on the way home, the guy at the airport, is putting it on the thing and just destroys the container that they're in, we at least have a copy. And all that work isn't for no reason. So I think that there's the backup capabilities as well.
We were talking about, Mike and I were just talking about that earlier. Every, for big time college football games, we'll always see the networks bring in 2 satellite trucks. And I think that, they're definitely starting to move away from 2 satellite trucks and going to 1 satellite truck and a cellular or IP transmission back just so they have a backup. I think the one thing that I really like about it is it's easy. If I were to send a student over to do a press conference and said, here, take this rattler and plug the rattler into the fiber and into the camera, and then the fiber's dirty, or, it can be sort of clunky. It's a lot easier. I could send my grandmother out with that backpack and hit start, and she could be transmitting back.
You bring up a very good point. I mean, in reality, because everybody's trying to save money and be more efficient, the people are less trained, less skilled. We have less time to train them even. And even the idea of walking up to that, in that stadium, walking up to that jack and saying, let me put an SDI cable in, and it's usually not an SDI cable. It's usually like this trunk cable, right? And saying, hey, could you put that in? You need a trained person to put that in and also troubleshoot it. But the LiveU products, number one, can be troubleshot remotely, and number two, they really just work. You plug the camera in, you turn the power button on, you hit power, well, you got to power up the camera too, and then you hit live.
That's it. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what,
you do have
what
to
I
select,
like about it.
You do have to select where you want to send it. There are options. There could be. I mean, it depends how many channels you have that you put into it, and so you have to select which one of those you want to send to.
Yeah, I was just going to say we haven't really talked about it yet, but one of the things I really appreciate about LiveU is their back-end web-based management console, LU Central.
Yeah.
So we're doing sometimes 4 or 5 events in a day, so I've got broadcasts going on in different parts of the country. I can log on from anywhere I'm at, whether it's an airport. I've even done it on an airplane. I log into LU Central and I can route my stream to where it needs to go, turn backpacks on and off, configure them, do everything I need to do remotely from a laptop anywhere I'm at that has an internet connection.
It is phenomenal. It really is. I know that we got to let Mike go because the sales are piling up here, and he's got to get to that. But I did, before you leave, I just wanted to ask you, what do you see as the future of this, what we're talking about, the at-home production? Where does it go? I mean, I mentioned using it for television shows, and I think, and for archiving or backup. I think the possibilities are really endless when you look at it. What could you do with it, given the infrastructure today? But where do you see it going in the future? And I know, saying that, we just released HEVC, right? HEVC, right, which I'm going to call HEVC because HEVC just sounds, I got to say that a million times. So we just released that. It's H.265, and it's the industry standard, so that's good. It allows us to do 4K, and really what the key is it's allowing us to do video compression, higher compression, but yet not making it look compressed.
Yeah, and I think that's key. I think, the cellular networks all over the world have come a long way in the last 5 years, right? So we've been in business now for 10 years as a company, and when we started, there wasn't even any 4G, right? There was only 3G, and in most countries it was 2.5G. So the cellular networks have come a long way, and they still have a long way to go. We got 5G on the horizon in another, 3 or 4 years probably. And I think some people are already doing tests of 5G technology. So the cellular networks are going to continue to evolve. And at the same time, our cost structure is going to continue to go down. We've already, our technology is already significantly reduced in price from where it was, 6, 7, 8 years ago. So, and with HEVC now, and I'll use it because that's the way I like to say it, but with HEVC now, we have the ability to do the same quality transmission as what we're doing with 1080p today, but in half of the bandwidth, or to get even double the quality that we're getting for the same bandwidth as what we're doing for HD today. And that trend is going to continue, and especially if you're in a venue where you have challenges in terms of network. Scott said, using mobile technology. Well, sometimes you're in a venue where there's a lot of people with phones, and the mobile technology is stressed, right? The networks are stressed.
So how do you, especially, and I was thinking about this for Scott's scenario, how do you balance that? Because, okay, I said do you test, and sure he tests. So you go into the stadium in the morning, and you go, I'm going to set up these 5 cameras, and I've got these 5 LU 600 packs, and you test, and everything works, and everything's synced, and everything is beautiful, and the stadium's empty. And then 50,000 people walk into that stadium. Now, maybe for what we're talking about, they're not going to be 50,000 people because these are the smaller time events, but right, in a case where 50,000 people now come into that stadium, and they all get on their phones, and they want the stats, and they want the scores, and they want to watch the video that mom just sent. How does that change things, and what can you do to prepare for it, and how do you balance for that?
Well, it's one of the things we've taken into account when we designed our system. So we actually designed antennas, cellular antennas, for each one of the modules that are in our systems, which actually boosts the signal that you get from the cell tower and allows the LiveU backpack to see cell towers that are actually further away from what a standard phone can see. So the 50,000 people that are in the stadium are all clustered on the cell towers that are within, a 500 to 1,000 meter proximity to the stadium, whereas the LiveU system can now see much further out and can see backhaul capability and capacity that the average cell phone can't see. So that's one of the things that we've done to kind of design around that eventuality. The other thing is we have this technology called the extender, which is a thing that you can add to your backpack that augments it with an additional 6 cellular connections with very large antennas as well, even larger than what you get in the backpack. And that can give you some extra bandwidth added on, sometimes 2, 3, 4 megabits per second of extra bandwidth, even in a crowded scenario that you wouldn't normally have. So,
all right, so what is the future?
I think the future is HEVC is clearly the future. It's a technology that is here today that we're showing here at NAB this week, and it's going to give you more resiliency over today's cellular technology. But in addition, we're going to see that cost continue to drop to the point where you can put this technology on every single camera you have and not even think about it.
That's, I think, the key, is putting it on every single camera you have and not even thinking about it, which means that we really will cut the cable.
That's exactly right.
That should be like LiveU, cut the cable. That should be the motto. It really should. Mike, thank you so much for joining us. I know you got to run. I appreciate your time, and you gentlemen too. So I'll let you go.
Perfect.
You sneak out.
Thank you very much. I appreciate
You're welcome.
the time.
He was
Thanks,
great,
guys.
was he not?
Thanks, guys. Brandon?
So
thank you.
Now there are 3, and soon we'll face elimination for. No, just kidding. So guys, when I talk about using this for television shows, you talk about pregame shows, we talk about all sorts of other things. Where do you see other applications that you guys could use it that you haven't tried it today that isn't sports? Because sports is the most no-brainer of them all, whether it's putting it on a golf course, putting it in a baseball stadium, or going up to the mountain with snowboarders and extreme sports and getting it there.
One of the applications that we're going to try is music. So we do a fair amount of live production for concerts. Same thing. You got venues that are difficult to get cable run around. You got thousands of people. It's not conducive to running cable. You get places, you look at festivals like Coachella out in the middle of the desert. There's very little power, let alone connectivity. So
that would be the holy grail, would it not? I mean, because
Absolutely.
we talk about sports, you need that sync, but I mean, there's music too. You need the lips to sync, and the strings of the guitar and the drums got to hit at the right beat. I mean, that would be, I think, the hardest challenge, because sports, you probably could lose a frame or two here or there and be okay. In music, I don't think you could.
Well, that's right. And the other thing, you kind of brought it up before, the idea of being able to produce this way and maybe being 60 or 70% of the way done, eliminating some of the editing
Right.
that you would normally do. I think that's another application for this in music, where typically you're going out on site and you're just shooting, you're recording every camera, and then you go back and you do a massive multicam edit.
Right.
It'd be great if you could switch it live using this workflow we're talking
Right.
about, and maybe end up 50 or 60% of the way done, and you've got a lot less post-production to do to complete a music project.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree.
I think one application that I would like to see us try and use it is we have an expensive RF microwave camera in our stadium, and he's going around there getting crowd shots.
Yeah.
But if we can get the latency down below a second, there's no reason I couldn't deploy 3 or 4 of those and be getting different crowd shots and different things in our stadium. So it essentially becomes sort of a additional microwave or
So the microwave is
RF
line
camera.
of sight. That's the first thing. It's line of sight, and they work much better than they used to, and sometimes they work better than other times, but there are problems with them still. And so I think you're right. If you can get that to replace it, it would work. Now, I can tell you we've done sub 1 second latency at CES in this very building, which is remarkable. But I don't know how it would work in the stadium with 50. I mean, this is a crowded place with a lot of cell phones, but I don't know how it would work in the stadium with 50,000 people. But if you could get it to work, it would be a great replacement for the RF transmitter or microwave transmitter that's expensive and sort of works.
Yep. And you talked about evolution earlier. I think that every year this has gotten better and faster and boots quicker. And I think that, I hope that down the future there is tally, and there is maybe intercom built into it, and there's maybe return video built in for every camera operator. And so I think there's room. There's areas to grow and
His
improve it
bandwidth
and make
bill
it
is
better.
going to be through the roof, by the way. We're going to have return video to every camera operator. We're going to have intercom in there and tally. All those take bandwidth. But
Unity does tally and intercom today.
it does. I was going to say that. And I actually would like to make an introduction to Avi and LiveU to Unity Intercom, because I think that it's, as you said, it's needed. I don't understand why it's not integrated into the system today in some way, shape, or form. They always say there's IFB, but it's this, you got to do this, you got to do that. To integrate it into it makes the most sense in the world and would make life so much easier. I mean, the camera guy could then just plug into the pack. He could hear the audio from the thing, and it could cut it out. And hey, Jim, pull a little closer to the, on your shot, or pan a little, or could you change that white balance? Why is your camera blue? But you can do all these things over it now. But and I'm sure that's what it's like directing from afar. It's got to be pretty amazing.
Well, that's what we did. When we do these remote broadcasts, we use Unity for comm and tally.
Right.
I mean, without that, it would be very, very difficult. I was interested to hear him talk about conference call. I don't know what the latency was there, but to your point, when you're calling a live sporting event, it has to be instant. There can't be a 2-second delay because you're trying to get a specific thing at a specific moment.
So Unity is 40 milliseconds, which
Right.
isn't even 1 second. It's not even like 1/3 of 1 second. It's so low, it's unbelievable. I think 100 milliseconds is like a third of a second. So it's not even 1/3 of 1 second. It's unreal.
Yeah, we're going to have to definitely try it for sure.
We're going to hook you up.
Okay.
I know the guy over there. He probably knows the guy.
I do.
Yeah. So between the two of us, we'll hook you up.
Okay.
Yeah. You hook us
I'm
up with the
excited.
LiveU people. Who are those people? I'm just kidding. So you think that it would be great for in-stadium instead of microwave. Are there any other applications you see this filling in for?
I mean, every day we get a request for content from a location where we're not wired via fiber, whether that's from a library or whether that's from someone who's going to have a press conference at another university building. We had a request the other day to do the homecoming parade, like it's the Macy's homecoming, or the Macy's
Sure.
Thanksgiving Day parade production. And I thought to myself right away, there's a application for LiveU. So
I will tell you, we did a production a few years ago where we went into Saks Fifth Avenue with the Philadelphia Eagles. Forget about running cable through Saks Fifth Avenue. There wasn't even time. They closed the store for this event at 6 o'clock. At 7 o'clock, the event starts. You can't run cables in 1 hour. I don't care if you have 100 people, we couldn't have run cables. We had to go several flights, the whole store, and the idea was that the athletes, for charity, the offense was styling 3 models, the defense was styling 3 models. They would be judged by fashion people, and this was all for charity, and they bet on who would win, and all the money went to charity. So it was really a fun event. But the only way to do it was with wireless video transmission gear like this. There is no way we could have cabled the entire place and then live switched it, from wherever. Now, I like the idea better of not having to bring the guy down to the facility and set up a switcher. At that point, we were doing it, back to a switcher, but it was all wireless, and it's really remarkable what we can do. I have this weird request to be able to replace Skype with it. Right now, we can kind of do it, but it's a little clunky, and I'd love to be able to replace Skype because that's what people are using when they're putting reporters in remote locations. So right now, you can have a reporter send back a feed, and we can use Unity to get audio back. The return video is good, but there's a delay to it. But I think people are seeing the need for better quality Skype or something like that. That's why Blackmagic has introduced their little $500 box that'll take any SDI, I think HDMI as well, and make it a USB connection to your computer.
And
so
LiveU does have an app that will go take your camera on your phone and go right to your receiver, which is
right. No, that's very cool. What I'm saying, I want to be able to do kind of a Skype remotely. I want this so that I could send. I also want it to be affordable enough that I could send this to the 10 regular contributors.
Yeah.
Without, I guess it is, but I guess the 50 regular contributors, so that we don't have to Skype everything. But it's just a dream. I don't know. Where do you see the most potential for this?
Well, I just see in general it's all about content moving forward, right? And consumption is moving away from linear TV and to over-the-top, internet-based, on demand. And this type of technology, I think, fosters a lot more content. It gives a lot more. We're sitting here talking about 10 different ideas on ways that you could leverage this to produce an event or to produce content that would otherwise not be possible, most likely, because of time, because of budget, etc. So I think that's the biggest thing that this has an impact on for the future, is it facilitates the creation of content that otherwise probably would not have been produced.
I think you're right, and I think that's the key. I think it's really, really important that we do that and we think about that, and we always have to keep the content in mind, right? I think that is the most important thing. And I just love what we're able to do, and I love that there are different varieties. There's the LU 200, 500, 600, and there's also the Solo, so that at every level we can be doing this better, faster, more affordably. We can be thinking about transmitting video. I think live is a really hot area right now, and we all want live everywhere, but there are applications. We talked about you're doing the golf thing live to somebody. I talked about Broadway Bartender. It doesn't have to be live. It can be, switched and edited. What about race cars? Has anybody put one in a race car and seen how it does around the track? I would imagine. I know NASCAR's got the whole setup they have, but you could literally put one of these in every. There are 40 cars at the Indianapolis 500. The Daytona 500 for the Daytona 500, there are about 40 cars that run in the race. You could potentially put 40 packs in 40 different cars.
Yeah, I suppose you could. We haven't tried anything like that.
The only issue, they don't weigh a lot, but I mean, these guys want to shave every pound off every one of those, every ounce. I always thought it was so funny. You get a guy like Tony Stewart, and he's like, yeah, we just shaved 15 pounds off the car. I'm like, Tony, why don't you lose 15 pounds? It's a good way to shave 15 pounds.
You bring up the topic of weight. One thing that's kind of interesting that we experimented with was putting an LU200 on a drone. Okay, so
how'd that work out?
It works.
Yeah.
I mean, it's exactly the way we're describing here.
But you're not talking about a Phantom. You're talking
no,
about...
of course not.
Yeah.
It has to be a commercial grade drone that will carry whatever the LU200 weighs,
Sure.
3 or 4 pound payload. But we did that and sent the signal back to the server and successfully ingested that into a live feed using that. That was for a cross-country meet.
Wow. Are you guys...
Your racing model, I think the RF space is getting so just full from radios and cameras and that, it's oftentimes nice to be on a bonded cellular network and off of that RF space.
Well,
I know
and
in our stadium, it's hard to find any bandwidth there, even for a wireless mic.
I'm not a race, like a big race guy. I'm not really into the races that much, but part of why I'm not is because I can't watch inside every car. I don't want to go to Martin Truex every single 13 seconds. I want to go to everybody's car. I want to be in the leader's car. I want to be in the guy who's last. I want to be in the guy who just wrecked. And you can't, they're getting there, but they're not there. And I think, to your point, a lot of it is, well, we can only roll out 8 RFs, so who are we going to put them in? Well, let's put one in the worst guy, or the guy we think will be the worst, and let's put the other 8 in the guys who are the most popular, or the other 7 in the guys who are the most popular. And they have to make choices. It becomes Sophie's choice, especially when the guy who has it in his car wipes out in the second lap, and you got 400 more laps to go.
I think latency, though, has always been the issue. You don't want to watch Martin Truex's car 15 seconds after.
Well,
you want it to be instantaneous. But I think now, the latency has gotten so good that if you get under a second, then
here's how we're going to do it. We're going to approach NASCAR, and this is how we're going to save them money. They keep everybody in Charlotte. Everybody could be in Charlotte, and we just take, every camera in the place.
Get rid of the 4 mobile units they have?
Everything. Everybody will be in Charlotte. Think about how much money they just saved.
Well, but what are we talking about here? We're talking about content. You want to see certain views that you can't get because you have to make choices. This allows more content to be available.
I mean, that's the truth. And you know what also really helps is cellular. As cellular continues to get better and better and better, not only the speeds, but the coverage, we're doing better and better and better because, think of, I think it was actually 10 years ago, I tried to make this work at a rally race. Rally races where they go into the woods in the middle of nowhere, and big in Europe, right? And I actually like this kind of racing a lot. And they were like, you can't shoot this because, you got a guy, he's here, and the next guy has to be 10 feet down, and now you got 50 cameras to shoot 2 seconds. But you could do it with a LiveU pack and all that, but we could never get the cellular to work in the mountains or in the woods. And I think we're starting to get to those more remote places, and 5 years from now, pretty much every place we could go will have cellular.
Well, he made a great point earlier about RF and how that's getting so crowded. We constantly battle with that, right, with wireless mics and other RF technology.
That's why we're on cables here.
We never have a problem with that with cellular bonding.
Right.
And he talked about the antennas. We go into venues all the time where you can't get a signal on your cell phone, and we're still getting 7.2 megabits per second out on our LiveU pack.
So I don't know if you've been to CES, but we do live coverage of CES as an official media partner for them. And this building is at max capacity. You've never seen anything like it. This building's crowded now. At CES, the hallway from the West Gate to here has booths. They take over the Sands Convention Center. They take over every space of real estate they can find, the Aria, the Venetian. So in the basement of the Sands, they put Eureka Park. That's where all the startups go. And you cannot get a cellular signal out of that basement. It's like 4 levels down in Vegas in concrete, to protect the vault or something. It's a Faraday cage, and we've been live with the LiveU LU 500 from there back to our set here at the Las Vegas Convention Center. And so to your point, where you can't get cellular, we get cellular.
And we experienced that a couple of years ago at Notre Dame It worked great in the morning. Luckily, we had requested that we get a hardline network connection from them, so we SDI cable back to closet. They gave us a connection, and it was all the cell towers were jammed, but luckily we had a wired connection, and it didn't cost much.
That's the one thing we didn't bring up, is that you not only can bond the cellular that's in the unit, you can add not only Ethernet,
Wireless
but
or
Wi-Fi
Ethernet,
as
yeah.
well. So if you can get, so a good way at a ballpark to ensure it is those same camera taps you used to pull out of, get them to run a Ethernet cable for you at each one of those camera locations, and at least if nothing else, you have a backup.
Yeah, that's what we do in every venue. We try to take whatever's available in the venue, whether it's Wi-Fi or Ethernet, turn on some cellular modems, and then we're covered.
You've got 500 kilobits up. We'll take it. Just give it to us. Sorry you can't ring your registers right now or run credit cards, but we're taking the bandwidth. That's how it, by the way, when it started, we used to do live broadcasts from the 40-40 Club on Monday Night Football with athletes, and it was amazing. And they literally couldn't ring out their registers because we were taking all their bandwidth. It'd be like you have to wait till the show is over to ring your tab out.
The IT guy's worst nightmare, right?
Oh, it was great. It was fun. They'd come over and they'd be like, "Are you guys almost done?" "Well, we have a really good show tonight. It's going a little bit long." "Why?" "Well, a couple of people want to ring out their tabs." I'm like, "Tell them to have another drink and relax."
Right.
I'm like, and then I'd go, "Oh, I heard LeBron James is coming. It's all good." And they'd go, "Oh, okay, we'll tell them." And then people would, everybody calm down. He was never coming. Yeah. All right. Well, it sounds like you guys have had a lot of fun, too, doing this. And it's very exciting. And I look forward to seeing both of your work. We should stay in touch. Where can people kind of find some of your stuff? L2 Productions.
L2productions.tv.
Excellent. And for you?
Soonersports.tv or our Sooner Sports app.
Yep.
And all of our content, too, is on Fox Sports Oklahoma and Fox Sports Southwest.
Before I let you go, how'd you get into the business?
I got my start at a small TV station, KNOP TV in high school, and then went to the University of Nebraska, where they just put in the first big screen in college athletics, and I was in the right place at the right time. They just built a control room, and so this has been what I've doing my whole life.
How about for you?
I've got a Nebraska connection as well. Went to the University of Nebraska and worked in the video department there. And I'm actually an audio guy by background, though, so I did a lot of scoring of sports-related content.
Wow.
And at some point, some of the folks from the University of Texas asked if I did video, too, and I said, yeah, sure, I can do that. And that's how it got started. But I tell you, what got me into the live production business was actually LiveU. So I had a relationship with some of the people that are executives at LiveU, and when the American Athletic Conference launched, they decided they wanted to create their own digital network, and they loved the idea of doing things this way with this type of technology. And I got involved with that and basically launched my company to do the production for the digital network for the American, and then the rest is history.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. That's Scott and Brandon. We'll be back with a whole lot more. Your live continuing coverage of NAB 2017 here in Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm Michael Artsis. You're the Terrifics. You make Be Terrific special. Stay with us.
If you could have a drink with anyone in the theater world, who would it be?